Thank you for inviting me. I'm Marc de Swaan. I'm part of a team called EffectiveBrands. We work with you. We're very inspired to work with you. And basically, all we do is share a consultant's and external perspective on what makes global brands successful. Because that's all we look at. We focus on global brands, and we ourselves are also very global. There are 5 offices. We're very small, about 75 people of 25 nationalities, and that is something I'm very proud of. And, as I said, we have a ruthless focus on what makes global brands win. So, I'm going to share about 25 years in marketing experience, but 12 years completely focused on what makes global brands successful. What is it about the brands? What is it about how they think about the media mix and interacting with consumers? And what is it about you, the people who are behind the brands, that makes them work? Because there is a dynamic. And that is just what I wanted to touch base upon here. That is touching all of us, including you. I have already heard, which is that today every marketer either works for or competes against a global brand. That may seem very obvious, but just 10 years ago it was not the case. The global brand was there, but actually a person in Australia 10 years ago could do anything that they wanted with that brand. Today that is very, very different. So when we say global brands, what we really mean is global marketing systems, global marketing collaboration across organizations. Now, I get into what is happening in the world. I'll call it the global brand temperature check. And again, none of this is a gospel. It's just my perspective on what I see happening out there. If we look at the people we're targeting, we will never say that there will be a global consumer at the end. However, when we talk to our clients, what we do see is a very strong convergence around certain types of consumers. We would call that the global consumer convergence. But even food, well, for example, let's talk about ready-made meals. Scratch cooking. That is the most local thing you can think of, but a client of ours like Unilever sees that even in India, scratch cooking is disappearing at a much slower rate, but it is a mega trend because women are entering the workforce and have less time to cook at night, which makes total sense. That is global convergence. If we look at what media people are looking at, for the first time, there's real convergence. We do all look at YouTube. That is, for a big part of our population, particularly in the younger groups, we see a convergence in media consumption, and brands obviously are reacting. Brands, and this is a mega trend, are looking for the markets that they are not in yet and saying, why aren't we? And saying hello to those local consumers and saying, you don't know us, we're really big, but you should know us. Immediate growth. So global brands are going more global. The global brands and the people behind them, the global marketers. One of our pet peeves, if we look at LinkedIn and see how many people have global marketing something in their title, and that role is exploding. Over the last 6 years, it's grown from 60-something thousand to, I think it's 250,000 now. Companies themselves have difficulty even saying where they are based. So companies, you don't even know where they're based. There is an absolutely global organization convergence. Interestingly, marketing is the laggard in this space. Marketing is one of the least globalized, but now that is rapidly changing. And the payback is there for global brands. This is a work from the Brand Use study, and what you see is that the global brands are significantly outperforming the general stock market. What does it take to win? What does it take to win the global brands? I thought that I would look at what we see as the key challenges for power brands, for global brands, for brands that are trying to grow, and then really look at 2 aspects of what make global brands successful. The first is the characteristics of the brands that we see grow faster than all the other brands. And the second, what's the machine behind it? The drivers of marketing organizational effectiveness, the leaders, the team, the way they work together. So let's first look at what we have here in these global marketing leaders. What are the big things they raise as the stuff that keeps them up at night? Surprise, surprise number one, social market. Okay, that's easy to say, but what is it about social marketing that people find challenging? The first I like to call the solar panel question. We know how, we don't know, we pretend. How many people here think that the solar panels in the future will play a more important role? How many people here would say that they can accurately estimate what exact savings are with solar panels? Exactly. Social media is exactly the same thing. It's stronger than that we know instinctively than when people engage, when they actually themselves decide to pass messages along. That is incredibly valuable. Then they are putting a piece of themselves combined with your brand. That's true engagement. We know it has value, just like we've always known that advertising has value. Now, social media, we know it works. Even our bosses know it works. But when it actually comes down to defining how much budget I'm going to put in this now, no one does what this interesting man did, which is to plaster the whole roof with solar panels. We just don't know how much to invest yet. And that is the stage we are in at the moment around social media. The second really big question around social media is who is actually leading it? Is it marketing? And who within marketing is it? Or is it client services? Or is it actually sales? Because so many of the interactions are about how can I buy it? Are you going to sell me this product? Who does what within the organization? In fact, are they within the organization, or do we ask our partner Facebook to do something? Or is it that we even sort of sub the whole responsibility around engagement to community managers that work for another company? People don't currently know which sort of the new responsibilities they take in-house or out-house. So there is a big challenge, very exciting. There is a huge change that has come about with social media that is what, I don't know if you know this saying, but it's very big in America, that the tagline is, "What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas." Sadly, that's not true anymore. Prince Harry learned the hard way that if you screw up somewhere, your grandmother knows. That is very true. If you are in charge of a brand somewhere and your colleague somewhere else, and this is what's happening, that your consumers don't think is normal, you're dealing with the shit. Starbucks, one of our clients, had a perfect example where they were invited because if you know anything about China, you know you don't just decide this. They were invited to open a Starbucks in the Forbidden City, which is a huge touristic attraction, of course. And the Chinese team was extremely proud of this and put out a press release. However, in London and in America, they didn't know about this, and the front page article in the London Times was, "Here is yet another example of American imperialistic, stupid, non-respecting culture company treading over the culture of this huge tradition." And literally, there were PR shitstorms all day long. In America, they were saying, "What's going on?" The outside communication was so much more efficient than the inside the company communication. And when you are dealing with brands across borders and social media, this is what you need to get it right, and it is keeping people who are responsible for big brands awake. I talked about the roles and responsibilities. The second big area that challenges marketing leaders and power brands is, what do we really stand for? Is it just creating products, and I know who I am saying it to? Is it really enough? Or is it, in a world where things are evolving and people copying more and more, is there a space or a necessity to move beyond that? It is so quickly transparent, the ethics and the values of the company behind the product. And in that new transparency, people are wondering what we stand for. We call that brand purpose, and it is incredibly important in a world where flat transparency communication makes it very, very difficult to differentiate. Let me use an example. HTC. This phone was for a little while the most advanced phone on the American market, the best-selling phone on the American market. But now, Huawei say they are doing exactly the same ads, advertising the highest speeds, the highest camera resolution, and they are advertising again on the product's quality. It goes very, very quickly. Now, You see brands going to the next step of the emotional benefit. Stella Artois really does go a step beyond HTC. They've built, over the 50 years of the brand's existence, an emotional bond, and I would guess that about half to 80% of all Stella Artois drinkers can actually stand up and describe the brand as if it is a person that comes into the room. It has moved from product to emotional benefit. That's a big push, but it's only the second step of what we think is a third, which is purpose. Purpose really says, what do we do to society? What difference do we make? Purpose is very different, or at least way beyond CSR, being green, being sustainable, because, quite frankly, I would argue that not polluting the world is table stakes now. It's your license to operate. If you do that, if you use child labor, or you pollute the world, or you use resources in a way that can't be refurbished at the normal rate, then you are going to be just stopped from doing business very soon by someone, either an ONG or a government or just a consumer movement online. Purpose goes beyond that because every brand basically has to be green. Every brand is not allowed to use child labor. But purpose is around, what do you do as a brand stand for uniquely that makes all the product claims that you need to? Has the emotional bond, but goes beyond that to the purpose of making a positive difference. Why is purpose important? These people here, these ladies, are actually the marketing team of Dove in the UK. Do you remember this commercial? This rare beauty? They were so passionately inspired by their own brand that they took their clothes off and showed the world what they looked like in their underwear. The American team went on Oprah in their underwear. These people are going to the CMO of Unilever, and I know because he's on our board and saying, "Don't promote me out of Dove because for the first time." That's a nice definition of purpose. Now, the third area that CMOs, senior marketing leaders, power brand leaders are thinking about is this always on, which is very parallel with social, but it's a different aspect because it so challenges how we work. We have a client in Malaysia who, on a Friday afternoon, heard there was a little bit of a crisis around one of their brands. I don't want to go into what category it is. And the chairman, being the age and the experience that he did, he said, "It's not in the newspapers. It's fine. We'll deal with it on Monday." On Monday, he had half the market share that he had had on Friday because all the time the communication online had continued. That's the negative. The positive is that actually brands like Heineken are there all the time, where they've always been in quarterly and biannual media planning. Now, in the monthly, they're doing their media buying and TV buying as they've always done, but they're doing it more spot. But actually, on a daily basis, they are changing what they say on Facebook. And on an hourly basis, they are responding to Twitter messages that they see are important to not ignore or to play off on. And when there's a Champions League match, they are live. They're saying things about the game. There are competitions always on. Who's going to do that? That's a lot of work. It's a new paradigm that we, the marketers, weren't trained to work like that. And the final point is going global because it is nice to talk about, but how do you do it? What does it actually entail? If you think about it for 1 second, you'll know there is no global market. There are just really important local markets. If the local markets are successful, the brand is successful. But there is an intrinsic, you would have to be completely different than every other organization I have ever met if you didn't have some of this. Yeah, that's a nice idea, but it wouldn't work here. We're different. Everybody that has to work within a discipline across borders deals with this resistance. And you may be part of the solution or you might be part of the problem, but this mindset of we're different stops a lot of progress and stops a lot of learning being transferred from one place to another. So I call that internal resistance. The world is changing. The companies don't want to change, and now what does it take to succeed? And this is the point in the presentation when I stop actually telling you things and I actually show you examples of what I think works, all right? because it is very easy to talk about problems. I'd like to offer you a framework. It's a very simple framework that talks about the what of the brand and the how. The what being, what do we stand for as a brand? The how being, how do we actually run it? How do we organize ourselves for it, and so forth. I'm going to talk about the what first, which is the black thing in the middle. Then I'm going to talk about the how, which are the orange arrows around. I will explain, because when we see these happening at the same time, that's when we see brands really move faster than their competitors. Let's talk about the middle. Winning characteristics. It's about universal truth. It's about purposeful positioning. And it's about total experience. Universal truth is the thing that you don't have to translate when you talk to your colleagues in other countries. This is for mothers that want their children to succeed. This is for people that want to grow old and enjoy life. This is about people that want to have loving relationships, or this is about people who want to stay healthy. There aren't that many of these global universal truths, but they're so true. They are obviously very generic as well. You can't build a brand on them, but what we see in the successful brands that travel is that they all understand what the universal truth inside the brand is, behind the brand, inside the consumer, and that everyone in the company understands that one universal truth. It has nothing to do around the marketing mix that you then develop. It's about the truths that you understand about the humans that we call consumers for your brand. Brands have always understood this. Ford has universal truth that is around the freedom to explore, to move, the rights for transport. Coke is an example that I'm actually going to show quite a few things about because what you always find, and I really can't stress this enough, this is true for you as well, you can buy your way into 5 markets in 5 years for lots of money, but you can't buy your way into 25 markets for 25 years. If brands have been around for that long, there is something innately universal. There's something universal around the universal truth inside consumers. For Coke, I think if I asked every one of you to stand up and talk about the consumer emotions around Coke, you would use different words, but it would be very consistent, something around happiness. How can that not leave a smile on your face? How true is that to the Coke brand? The brilliance of this is that they have been so consistent in building on that. It's not what they stand for, it's what they appeal to. Very different. The executions can be very different, but it can be something much more basic. Axe understands extremely well what teenage boys think about, and they do it in a million different ways, but what they think about is very consistent. Let me show you my favorite execution of that.
Boom shakalaka, rude boy. Wine your body, wiggle your belly, dip and go down in a new style. Wine and go up,
David,
What?
I've ironed your shirt for you. Do you have to go out tonight?
The Lynx Effect.
That's so nice. This is not about developing one execution to get the idea across because the ad was tested in multiple countries. Really, an ad made for the British humor, British teenage understanding, with a slapping of the hand on the table, which is what they do when they laugh and blah, blah, blah. The Italians completely didn't understand this film. They thought the woman ironing the shirt was David's sister. I want to learn how to train your sister to do that. So, it's not about a consistent execution, it's about a consistent understanding, which I think we all agree teenage boys share. And then getting the right execution, which actually takes brilliant local insights. So what we're talking about here is not about consistent execution, but about consistent understanding of the universal truth behind that consumer. Now, I want to move to the second component, which I've already alluded to more than a little bit, which is this purpose, this taking a step behind functional, beyond emotional, to actual purposeful positioning, making a difference. If we look at the successful companies of the world, whether it's Procter & Gamble, Sony, Ford, General Electric, and I dare say Ferrero, there's always a founder at the start that wanted to make a difference. And because they made a difference, they probably made some money too, but it was never that the money was the goal. And where we have ended up today is an economy where so often money is the goal. And that is when you start to see people losing their way so they forget what the purpose was. Unilever, the company behind Dove, comes from a very purposeful background. This is about the Industrial Revolution where the north of England really looked like the south of Africa at the moment. Slums, total lack of hygiene, total lack of childcare, total lack of education, and disease. And the Unilever village was somewhere where someone could have a safe job and work and send their kids to school and be hygienic. They got houses with their, when you go into the roots, and when we so often do, of companies with such a rich heritage, there's something very purposeful. Let me now drill down on the Dove example.
Show me a smile then. Don't be unhappy, can't remember when I last saw you laughing. If this world makes you crazy and you've taken all you can bear, you call me up because you know I'll be there. And I see your true colors shining through. I see your true colors, and that's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let them show. You're beautiful like a rainbow.
The Dove self-esteem film. I still can't watch it without being touched. I want to tell you the story behind the film for a moment. So, here is a global brand director that really went back to the roots. Dove had become completely commoditized. It was different things in different parts of the world, and she went back to the roots. And the thing that made it different from all the Procter & Gamble ads is that actually it didn't tell you that you are ugly, it told you that you are beautiful. It didn't tell you, like L'Oreal does, that you needed to fix yourself with these products. It told you that you could use these to enhance yourself. But the starting premise is that you are beautiful rather than ugly. Now, that might sound like a semantic difference, but it isn't. 80%, 83% to be precise, of girls 12 and older think there's something wrong with them. That is a staggering statistic, 83%. And this global brand manager said, there is something really wrong here. 1, we've lost our way because we're just trying to copy Procter with product claims that everybody copies and has the same claims next year and we all move one up, but that isn't true to our roots. So she developed this concept with Ogilvy of real beauty. Now think, board of directors. board of directors of a 55 billion euro company. A board of directors that may not surprise you, 12 gray men. And they looked at this very passionate global brand director and said, yeah, sounds like a good plan. Sounds like a great campaign. Good luck. And she said, no. I actually want to change the way we make products. I want to change the way we talk about products everywhere. And they said, yeah, well, that's nice, but why don't you get on with the advertising? And she stepped back. She came back to the next board meeting, and this film was made by Handcam, but the people talking were their wives and their daughters. There's the chairman's daughter complaining about her birdman's nose because he had a very typical nose. There are the daughters, both, of the Indian chairman complaining about the length of their legs and how they were too short. And suddenly it became really, really personal. And that's why you saw real beauty go across the whole world of Unilever into product development, but into things like the Dove Self-Esteem Fund. That's not just some kind of nice place that you write a letter to. It's a course that you download as a teacher or as an employee or just somebody that's interested, and you take kids through some videos and some learnings. It's from age 6 and up, where they see that what's in the magazines is fake. To date, 15 million kids have been taken through that program. And you can't go through that program without, for the rest of your life, looking at ads and going, hey, it's not real. Yeah? 15 million kids. So it's not only that they did it in their own advertising and in their product development and in the way that they work with each other, but they also created a massive connected institute and program that has touched the lives of 15 million young kids. That's what I would call purposeful. That's real. That's leveraging your power into the world. Now, this is one of the ads that they made that went viral because it is so real. It's part of the course. 140 million people watch this. By the way, this ad cost $15,000 to produce. 140 million shows. You know how you get those really annoying ads right next to what you're trying to look for on the web? That's Google's ads. Ad search, I think it's called, and it is basically people bidding on your interest, so it is linked to what you're looking at, and then they pay to put the ad there. What Dove said, and of course the ads now are horrible ads, when you look at anything about beauty, the ads, because they work, are telling you that you are not. What Dove said is, no, you know what? We'll pay you more and allow you to put a positive instead of a negative ad here. Have a look at this little film.
Muffin top? Jelly rolls? Need a bigger bust? Messages like these taunt you, prey on your insecurities, and make you feel bad. In fact, Dove discovered that only 4% of women believe that they're beautiful, a statistic so disturbingly low. We decided to do something about it. Dove created the Ad Makeover, a Facebook application that lets you replace those feel-bad ads with messages designed to make women feel good instead. Here's how it works. Select a message. Choose who you want to send it to. Then send your message to millions of women. Your message takes the place of ones designed to make women feel bad and helps them feel beautiful instead. Join us on our mission to make more women feel beautiful.
Muffin top? Jelly rolls? Need a bigger bust? Messages like these prey on your insecurities and make you feel bad. In fact, Dove discovered that only 4% of women believe that they are beautiful. A statistic so disturbingly low, we decided to do something about it. Dove created the Ad Makeover, the Facebook application that lets you replace those feel-bad ads with messages designed to make women feel good instead. Here's how it works. Select a message, choose who you want to send it to, and then send your messages to millions of women. Your message takes the place of ones designed to make women feel bad and helps you feel beautiful instead. Join us in our mission to make more women feel beautiful. I want to show you one more example of purpose, which is for a brand that you would never think could be purposeful. Paint. Industrial paint. This is Dulux. It is the #1 or #2 paint brand wherever you are in the world, and they use different names, but the positioning is built on a very simple insight that they discovered. I don't know if you've ever read Malcolm Gladwell's The Tipping Point. He discovered that if a neighborhood had all broken windows, that people would, well, crime basically went up. And if you fix the windows, crime went down. This is exactly the same. If you paint the walls around you, you feel different. I think we immediately connect to that. Well, you can't do that to neighborhoods. You can do that to poor neighborhoods. And paint isn't actually that expensive. So Dulux came up with the Color the World positioning, and this is what they've done with it since, to create an economic effect. This brand has gone into neighborhoods and said, here's paint, change your neighborhood. And for example, for Brazil, I know the hard result led to a 5-point market share increase because people saw what the brand stood for and said, you know what? And you've got to love exposure. I want a brand that stands for something like that. And I ultimately do believe that's where we're going to end up. When everything else is the same, we're going to choose the brand that we think makes a positive difference. This is the second part of brands that win, and the third is total experience. Total experience goes way beyond the ads or even the banner or even the one interaction. Total experience means that you take the brand positioning and say, how do I integrate that into every touch point with my consumers? How can I help the brand's value in every way that is relevant? Nike, for me, is the #1 here. I used to think Nike was a shoes company until I went to see the CMO of Nike last Christmas, and he described Nike as a service company. I thought, really? They see themselves in service of the athlete, but also you and me. Anything to get us moving. What has completely accelerated out of orbit is the Fuel Band. The Fuel Band they now sell more than $1 million worth of every day. This thing has surprised even Nike in its success. Now they will sell more shoes along the way, but what they're really trying to do is to get you to move. And I have a little video.
Nike's mission has always been to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. They've done this in the past by making great products and then telling people about them. 7 years ago, with the launch of Nike Plus, they started a journey that has taken them from being a company that makes shoes and apparel to a products and services company. Nike Plus has grown to 6 million active members using it on average 3 times a week. But now it's about to get even bigger. This year, with the launch of Nike Plus Fuel Band, a metric that measures all activity called Nike Fuel, ties all these products and services together into a connected ecosystem. Like calories, Nike Fuel is a way to gauge your daily activity. But unlike calories, which people burn at different rates depending upon body type, Nike Fuel is the only standard that lets you compare yourself with anyone else, no matter who they are or what they're doing. Walk, run, dance, skateboard, play basketball, it all counts. Nike Fuel Band is the device you wear that tracks everything you do. One button lets you check your fuel, calories, steps, and time. The LED lights change from red to yellow, and when you hit your goal, green.
We've built it to be a motivational game. Getting to your goal every day is the core part of the experience.
When you consistently hit your goal, Fuelie helps you celebrate.
The social part is actually what keeps it really sticky. It's kind of that competition that keeps you coming back. Anyone who you're friends with on Facebook will be in your leaderboard.
When you buy a Fuel Band, you automatically become part of the Nike Plus community, which includes Nike Plus running, training, and basketball. Now the Nike Plus platform is set to grow exponentially with more members who are active every day.
When it came time to launch the product, we came up with one word that summarized it all: counts.
Can you count, suckers?
Everything you do counts. That became the basis for the campaign introducing Nike Fuel to the world. Consumer demand was so high, pre-orders sold out within minutes.
What I hope we can see in the metrics is that people have become more active through wearing their Fuel Bands. That for me would be the ultimate measure of our success.
Fuel Band is transforming how we measure performance, and it represents a new mission for Nike as an organization, creating products and services that become a part of people's everyday lives, with motivation built in. It's a commitment we've seen evolve over 2 years of collaborating with Nike on the Fuel experience. From the Fuel metric itself, to the mobile and platform integration, to social engagements, and ultimately the launch of the Fuel Band. This puts Nike in an exclusive family of fast-growing companies that have created functionally integrated systems.
Today's announcement is exciting. I mean, anything to get people moving. Me being able to compare my scores with everybody else is going to be cool.
Nike has this saying, if you have a body, you are an athlete, and now this is finally coming true.
Nike's mission has always been to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. They've done this in the past by making great products and then telling people about them. 7 years ago, with the launch of Nike Plus, they started a journey that has taken them from a company that makes shoes and apparel to a products and services company. Nike Plus has grown to 6 million active members using it, on the average 3 times a week. But now it's about to get even bigger. Nike Fuel Band is a device that you wear that tracks everything you do. One button lets you check your fuel, calories, steps, and time. The LED lights change from red to yellow, and when you hit your goal, green. We built it to be a motivational game and to have a goal every day as a core part of the experience. When you consistently hit your goal, Fuelie helps you celebrate. Social partners is what actually keeps it really sticky. It's that kind of competition that keeps you coming back. Anyone who you're friends with on Facebook will be in your lead board. When you buy a Fuel Band, you automatically become part of the Nike Plus community, which includes Nike Plus running, training, and basketball. Now, the Nike Plus platform is set to grow exponentially with more members who are active every day. When it came time to launch the product, we came up with one word to summarize it all: counts. Everything that you do counts. That became the basis for the campaign, introducing Nike Fuel to the world. Fuel Band is transforming every measurable performance and represents a new mission for Nike as an organization creating products and services that become a part of people's everyday lives with motivation built in. Anything to get people moving. Nike has a saying, if you have a body, you're an athlete. And this is really coming true now. Now, I want to show you just a few more examples of how Coke has taken their position into the total experience and the success that it has led them to. They are by far the #1 Facebook page for brands. If you look at how they do that, they take the total experience of that brand across all the media and all the touch points, and they really think through how to translate every single time to completely new executions. But the most important internal aspect of that is that they realize that they have to let go of the old model where 3 people in the brand decided what they communicate. At any one moment, 5,000 people in Coca-Cola are communicating about the brand. This is the new social media Coke marketing, and the company first tried to stop that and then gave really strict guidelines on what people could say, and then they realized that this was no longer possible, and in fact, they didn't need to, because they could just sit back and trust their people to talk about Coke in the right way, because they were proud of being part of Coke. So they issued some guidelines like, don't give away the Coke formula to our competitors, please. But other than that, you are basically free to talk about your life at Coke, and these guidelines are public. So in the new transparent, socially connected way, there's no hiding the rules. There's no restricting who says what about your brand. Now, do I think everybody needs to be here today? No. Tomorrow, I think you will have to be there. Let's look at one example of how they put their purpose into a total experience. I described 3 aspects of successful global brands. The first is they are all rooted in a universal consumer truth, a human truth. The second is that they've gone beyond functional, beyond emotional, to a real purpose of what they stand for in the world as a brand, the difference they make, the reason they exist. The third is that they've taken that purpose and thought through continuously reinventing themselves every step of the way. What is the total experience that I can give my consumers? Before I mentioned that there are a lot of brands that are very strong in their functional qualities, and you can get stuck on that. I have to be honest with you, the Dove story is not all positive. For the first 3 years, it was all great. And then there was a period when the marketers thought that they could sell lots of Dove just by having a great emotional benefit. And guess what? Sales tanked because their competitors went up with new functional benefits. It's not about one or the other. It's about doing all of them. This was about the what does the brand stand for. Now I want to tell you about how are they run. We call that the drivers of effectiveness. I'm going to summarize them very quickly around the how. The first is connect. This is about connecting all the people you need to succeed around the brand purpose, around the marketing strategy, around the common goal of where you're trying to go. It's a continuous leadership challenge. I'm just talking about the leadership challenges now to make sure that the key people are connected, that they have the right information, that they know about the things you're doing, and most importantly, that they feel an interdependence. The second is inspiration. Great marketers always understand that their role is to inspire the organization to think about their brands. And when the inspiration is there, do you actually offer the focus, which is often a vision and a 3-year sort of aspirational goal, where you're saying, we don't want to be everything, we're trying to get there. And then when you go there, you have clarity around who does what, especially when you have a local team, a regional team, and a global team. It is so important that you all agree up front. What do I do, and what do you do, and where do we collaborate, and where I am not involved, or where is that person not involved? And finally, what we call the build, which is around getting people the tools, the training, like today, and the information so that once they know their role, they've got the stuff they need to get it done, equipping everybody for success. The first is connect. You see the Virgin Galactic here. It's the first commercial space plane. But I show it here because remember that drawing I showed earlier, the 2 cavemen looking at the wheel, and one guy said to the other, that won't work here, yes? This is the thing we do in innovation workshops. We take the Virgin off and we show the picture of the plane and we show it for 3 seconds and then we take it down and then we ask you not to look at me there and then we ask you to write 3 things down about what you saw. And the terrible thing about mankind is that I know that of the 3 things you wrote down across the room, 80% will be negative. We are trained biologically to look for risk, to look for differences to our safe habitat. When you see something that looks different, like this plane, we look for the negatives, not for the positives. We are hardcore trained biologically to look for the this is different to what I know. So the point is, different might be good. And the global mindset of looking for differences versus looking for similarities is a crucial one. How do we get people to feel connected because they're trying to do the same thing? This is what connectedness is about. And what does it take? Well, for example, the regional team is to go to some key markets, not to sell the strategy, but to actually say, I'm not going to tell you what I want to do yet. I'm coming here to first, for a day, listen to your key marketing challenges. Tell me your competitive challenges. Tell me your retail challenges. Tell me. Well, that may seem obvious, but actually it's not a dynamic that often happens. I know lots of regional brand leaders that go to their countries, and when they leave, the countries say, see, they had 10 things to tell us. They were selling, selling, selling. That's not connection. So you go listen, and we call that the servant leadership mindset. You are the servant that in the sense that if that country is not successful, you are not successful. If they think that you have some other plan, that there's a regional plan that's better than the market plan for whatever reason, they're going to see you as having a different agenda. But if they understand that you are trying to develop a plan that will work across those 5 countries, but it's going to make all of us better, and that you thoroughly are in the market for doing that, that is a servancy. But I'm not telling you to be a servant. I'm calling it servant leadership because once you've convinced countries, once you've convinced them that you are really out to make them win. We can't have a different Nutella in Switzerland, to Germany, to France. It's just not viable, given all the connections and the flat social communication that's taking place. So, servant leadership is a mindset at the global level, at the regional level, at the leading across borders level. If you don't have it, you will not be successful. But it also takes that looking for similarities mindset from the other side. If you are in a country or in a discipline and you catch yourself saying, "Oh no, but things are different here," that's true. They always are. The question is, what is the same? What of the 5 things that you just were presented can you actually use so we don't have to reinvent that wheel? It's a different way to how we are programmed. You're part of a company that is globalizing, like it or not, because the outside world is globalizing. You will only survive if you take that global mindset. It doesn't mean that you do things the same. The Axe commercial would never work in Italy. That's not what I'm propagating. It's just that you take the mindset of, what can I use? That might work here is just a mindset. That is when we get the connection. Now, inspiration. I'm going to go very quickly, but it's the cheapest one to ignore. It's also the easiest one that everybody always says, yeah, we all do that. It's very important. What you see here is the people from Dulux painting those walls, not the people in the villages, the actual Dulux employees. 80% of Dulux employees have now participated in these projects. Huge levels of inspiration among the workforce. Retention has gone up. Regretted losses have dramatically dropped. Now, focus. I show the lady from Dove because it was the first commercial, but what I didn't mention at the time was that there were actually 7 brand positioning statements of Dove when this project started. And here's a picture after 3 very painful weekends. Weekends because they couldn't find the time in their normal calendars. Of all the regional people coming together, and finally they ended up with one piece of paper, the Dove one-pager. Everything you see today was true to that one-pager written 12 years ago. All the regions fought tooth and nail, but in the end they agreed they needed to come out with one if they were going to be successful against Procter & Gamble, who was as global as it can be. They came out with one page. It wasn't very specific. It didn't tell them what kind of executions to do, but it told everyone where the brand needed to be 5 years later. That's focus. One-page brand vision. Now, you can't, of course, take all the countries you're in and say, okay, they're all the same, they're all going to do this. But what you can do is you can simplify the world. What we see a lot of successful global brands do, they say, look, okay, there isn't one strategy, but there are 5 types of strategy and only 5. So we can simplify the world if you take a step back and say, is there a way to focus our strategy? So, from 50 to 5, and one big insight here. If you are a market where you are in the functional phase, there are probably things you can learn from each other on how to do that well, and you're still explaining the rules of vocabulary. If you're in the next stage of development of the brand, again, there are interactions. When you try to get people to plan around one vision, do not ask them about next year. Then, the current goes away for a moment. We look at competitive trends. We look at media trends. We look at consumer trends, and we've got a pretty clear picture on where we need to be. So don't ask people to work on the next year. Ask them once in a while to focus on strategy a little bit far out, and then appeal to their expertise to say, how are you going to get there in your market? And that's a very different way of thinking about focus. And the roles are dramatically shifting. The only answer is the shifting, so be open to the fact that they are shifting and be open to reevaluating them along the lines, because we've got companies now where they're taking creative back in-house because they've got to create on their own, because they've got to create content all the time and they can't afford to pay other fees to do that. What's important is 1, that we realize there's shifting and that we're open to it. Don't protect your turf. And 2, that we create clarity for every day of the week. The big insight is, it doesn't really matter what role you play. You could be the champion, you could be the driver. None of them are right or wrong. The important thing is that you, at a regional level, the global person and the local person, that they agree on what role each one plays. Because if we think differently about what role you play, then we're going to step on each other's toes. And that's when it gets really nasty, and then people get into fights and politics and friction. The clarity on the role is more important than the breadth of the role. And finally, build. Build is about taking a step back and saying, what seems to work? Now, let's leverage that. Now you can do it in a smart way, and you can do it in a very, very silly way. The silly way is that you go to Germany and you go, hey, Germany, you want to launch this, right? Well, this is what Americans did. Please do that. They're not going to. We all know that. But if you look at this highly successful launch in America and you say, so what's the generic things that they did that I can pull off out of this? Here's a checklist of 5 things to always do when you go for the first time, or these are the 5 things to never do. You create checklists, lessons learned, maybe some case studies. It's about defining how we do marketing. We all have different languages. We have complete towers of Babel because our profession is not standardized. Well, you can't afford that if you're building the same brands. So let's at least get the language of what we do consistent. So when you grow penetration, I can actually understand why and what you were trying to do. So actually creating our own way of marketing and being really clear every year on the 2 or 3 things that we need to be really good at, because marketing is like 27 different things, from social marketing to partner marketing to community marketing to insights, blah, blah, blah. But we don't have to be world-class in all of them. For next year, it is 3 things that we need to be really good at. So what are they? And what are we doing to help ourselves get better in that? And that's really what it takes. Now, how do you do that? The way we train ourselves could be very different. For example, the home visits, the online resources available to everybody. There's mentoring, the immersion visits. This is what I really think is the end play. It's not just about those leaders, and it isn't about the communication channel only or the function, because everything we talked about is integrated. It is all about marketing and communication integrating. But ultimately, it really is about all the touch points that we have as brands with our consumers. And you might as well read that as we have as Ferrero employees, because it is you that are formally speaking on behalf of the brand, but it is also the people that work in production. When they go home and they have a drink with their friends, that is today. Tomorrow, they're chatting in a chat room. They represent your brand just as much as you do in the new social world. So it actually means that when we start thinking about capabilities, everyone in the company, not today, maybe not even tomorrow, but at Coca-Cola, they are already working on this premise that everyone in the company needs to be comfortable with social media and needs to know what the purpose of the brand is, so that the leadership can let go and say, you know what? Great, I like having 80,000 ambassadors of the brand because we are proud of who we are. And that's when the what and the how come together. I think as brand teams, as interdiscipline teams, you can really think about, indeed, do we have a clear universal truth? When he talks about it in Hungary and she talks about it in Switzerland, they may use their own words, but they are really saying the same thing. Is that true? Second, do we have something that's bigger than functional, bigger than emotional, but actually is a purpose that I could tell my mother about and be proud of? And third, do we, as a marketing communication integrated discipline, do we have a total experience approach where we've thrown the old media planning rules completely out of the book, and we are really thinking about the all touch points and saying, are we creating brand experiences that bring that purpose alive? That's the what. That's what you need to think about as you are driving your strategy and developing next year's plans. But today, tonight, tomorrow, under the shower, it's the personal bit. Are you, as part of the marketing leadership, because you are all leaders, otherwise you wouldn't be here, are you taking a global mindset? You might not have to work globally because you're working in a category in a region, but is the mindset one of looking for similarities rather than differences? Are you keeping yourself in check? And are you keeping the team in check when they come back from the meeting and say, I saw this and it doesn't do this again? Okay, interesting. What? Tell me some things you like about it. Is that the culture you are promoting around you? And are you inspiring the people that matter and then focusing them with very clear roles and responsibilities? And finally, are you asking people, maybe yourself sometimes, because it is a great leadership moment, but also others in your team when you got it right? Or perhaps even more importantly, when you really screwed up? Are you capturing it in such a way that Germany doesn't have to go through the same thing? Because then you are building. And then not only is the what good, but also the how. And that is a very, very simple, overly simple, almost embarrassingly simple construct, but I hope it offers a little bit of value for you, and that it was worth my coming. Thank you for your time.